Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar, Introducing Outdoor Learning, a four-part webinar series. We're going to give folks another moment to join us, so just hang tight and we'll be getting started shortly. If you'd like to share where you are joining us from around the country in the chat, that would be great. Maybe your role in your school or district and your name. We would love to meet you. Good afternoon to those who are joining us. Welcome to the Outdoor Learning webinar series. We're going to get started in just a moment. We're just allowing a few more folks to jump on. If you're just joining us, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, where you're calling in from, and maybe your role in your school or district. All right, well, it is 2 past the hour, so I'm going to get us started in the interest of time. Good afternoon and welcome to the Outdoor Learning webinar series. This is the first of a series of 4 webinars, and our webinar today is focused on the physical and mental health benefits of outdoor learning. We're very excited that you are here to join us today. My name is Laura Thompson, and I am the Director of Strategic Alliances at Big Green, which is a national nonprofit organization. I'm here today with my colleague, Sam Koentopp, who is Director of Educational Programs, and he is joining me to host this session. I'd like to briefly go through a few housekeeping items before we begin. Everyone is muted with their videos off, with the exception of our presenters today. Please feel free to welcome yourself, as many people are doing in the chat function. Introduce who you are, where you're calling in from, and maybe your role in your school or district. I also want everyone to know that the webinar today is being recorded and will be posted on biggreen.org/outdoor webinar series, and it will also be emailed out to you. Please use the Q&A function to ask a question. Even if we don't get to all of the questions during the webinar, we will make note of the questions and work on answering them on our website after today. So please do ask questions, but we may not get to them all. This series came together through the very hard work of a consortium of partner organizations from communities across the country who are experts in the field of outdoor and garden-based education, namely Big Green, Green Schoolyards America, OutTeach, EcoRise, and Fresh Farm Foodprints. We created this series because we are excited about the opportunity to elevate the amazing work of schools and districts across the country to bring education outside, both during the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond, and provide clear and direct guidance to those who have not yet explored outdoor learning, no matter your geographical context. Here is our schedule of upcoming series, webinars in the series, which you can also find on our website, biggreen.org/outdoor webinar series. We are very grateful to the Department of Education's support of outdoor learning as an important educational tool. And now I am delighted to introduce Lexi Bates, who is a senior advisor to Secretary Cardona at the U.S. Department of Education, who would like to welcome everyone today. Go ahead, Lexi.
Thanks so much, Laura. I'm delighted to be here today to help kick off this webinar series. As Laura noted, I'm a senior advisor to Secretary Miguel Cardona at the U.S. Department of Education. My role at ED is to lead our interagency strategy and initiatives, and I've had the pleasure during my time here to work really closely with our team that focuses on school infrastructure and sustainability. And I know through this webinar series, we're really looking forward to hearing about case studies of schools and districts that are engaged in this work in communities all across the country. Secretary Cardona really believes that an essential role for the Department of Education is to help share and amplify best practices happening at schools and colleges across the nation in service to our students. And so this is a really great way to do that. I also wanted to be sure to mention our Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools Recognition Award, which is another prime example for how we hold up great practices happening in schools and colleges across the country. The honorees of this award show progress in 3 big areas, which kind of exemplify how we at the department think about these issues. One is around reducing environmental impacts and costs. The second is improving health and wellness. And the third is teaching effective environmental and sustainability education. So naturally, outdoor learning features really prominently in the work of many of the past honorees of the Green Ribbon Schools Recognition Program. And I would encourage you, and I can put it in the chat in a minute, to check out the Department of Education website on the Green Ribbon Schools program, as well as our Green Stride School Sustainability Resource Hub, which has access to other webinars that we have hosted or participated in and other resources that might be useful to your schools. And also definitely plugging that we love lifting up schools and districts who are doing work in these areas. And so you can check out the details of how to nominate someone for this recognition as well. As Laura noted, we're totally in agreement that outdoor learning became something that was a big focus, obviously, as a result of COVID-19, but shouldn't kind of stay within that space in our minds. We know that COVID-19 had a dramatic impact on our country's education system and continues to affect our communities, but it did also spur more schools to think about outdoor learning in new ways. And we're glad that Congress made funds available to schools to address the many challenges brought by the pandemic, both to keep schools healthy and learning in person, and also to address the continuing impacts of lost instructional time. And we do encourage schools to consider using their American Rescue Plan funds to support outdoor learning in schools. These funds are designed to address those losses experienced during the pandemic and to increase engagement of our students, and really what could be more engaging than being outdoors and being involved in active learning. And we're seeing a lot of schools invest in improvements that are protecting health and improving efficiency in their schools, as well as investing in outdoor classroom spaces, which we're really excited about. And since you're all attending this webinar, I do feel like these talking points to a certain extent are preaching to those who already believe in this. I know that you probably already know that outdoor learning was a vital educational tool well before the pandemic. We know that students who have opportunities to learn outside gain access to nature and complex interactive environments that really help them in their academic and social development, give them the opportunity for physical activity and hands-on learning. We also know that outdoor learning is possible at all grades and all parts of the country and all different types of schools. We have even recognized preschools in Wisconsin and Minnesota that get our littlest learners outside in the winter, snowshoeing and fort building and observing animal tracks and sledding. And it's just a lot of those really cool examples that kind of break the boundaries of how people might think about what's possible in this space. And I know that today's session is going to include lots of these great examples of how outdoor learning is crucial for whole child health and learning. And I'm really excited to hear about these examples. And I know we at the Department of Education are really excited about this webinar series, about being able to participate and kick it off in this way, and to continue to recognize the great work that's happening from educators and schools and districts and community partners really across the whole country for outdoor learning and their infrastructure efforts to keep schools engaging, healthy, and exciting environments for students. So with that, welcome. I will turn it over to Sam to kick off the rest of the program.
Lexi, thank you so much. It is wonderful to have the Department of Education support as we kick off this series. Um, Before we begin and introduce our first guest, I'll just give a little bit of background of who Big Green is and what the work that we do is. We began as an organization in 2011 as a national school garden nonprofit, and by 2020 we had built 600 and just about 650 school gardens across the country, supporting them with ongoing resources year to year. The pandemic really led to a shift, a dramatic shift in our organization. And rather than being able to provide that direct in-person support at the school level, we've been shifting and delivering grants to schools directly to help support their outdoor learning initiatives, as well as providing online resources supports for both educators and providing additional resources for families at home and the community partners that are working alongside us in this incredible work. And so we've seen firsthand how valuable and important school gardens and outdoor learning are for students' well-being. Getting to attend schools that are having harvest celebrations where students are preparing recipes and sharing the nutrition knowledge that they've had with us as partners, with their families, with their school, with their classmates, has really helped to just illuminate the power of the work. Hearing teachers share their experiences with students who, while indoors in the classroom, are stifled and not participating, but become leaders in the outdoor classroom spaces, has been an inspiration. And we've even been invited to memorials at schools that have suffered huge tragedies and losses, where the gardens can become places of memory and places of healing for the entire school population. So we've seen it firsthand how valuable these resources are, and are so thrilled to be able to invite some really great speakers today to share with you their knowledge and their experience doing this work across the country. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Claire Letane, who will be our next speaker, our first speaker. She is the Assistant Professor in Landscape Architecture at California State Polytechnic University in Pomona. She's the author of the book Schools That Heal that came out last year. And the work she has done in her school design studios has inspired over $2.5 million in grant funding to transform learning environments. And we are thrilled to learn from her today about how well-designed schools and schoolyards support health and wellness across the school community. And I will add her full bio into the chat. Claire, take it away.
Thank you so much, Sam. And welcome everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I'm going to share a big picture view of supporting students with a focus on mental health today. 50 years of research shows that viewing and being in nature calms our breath, reduces our heart rates, reduces stress and anxiety, and brings communities together. Roger Ulrich's 1984 hospital room study found that surgery patients in rooms with views to trees healed faster and requested less medication for pain than patients with views of brick walls or even of blue sky. Nature truly is healing, and it is especially healing for people experiencing trauma. Our young people today are experiencing staggering rates of trauma. In fact, many of today's public school students deal with layered crises of poverty, trauma, fear of school shootings or neighborhood violence, and a genuine concern for the future of their planet, and for the systemic inequities that plague our systems, including education. Now add to these the short and probably long-term effects of pandemic. Our students and teachers are in crisis. A 2016 Los Angeles Unified School District study found that well before the pandemic, of students screened, 50% suffered moderate to severe post-traumatic stress disorders, and 98% had experienced at least one traumatic event. And while there have been major efforts to increase the number of counselors and psychologists in schools, it would take an incredible amount of resources to treat every student individually. Over half of students with mental health issues will never be diagnosed. And even if they are diagnosed, they may not get help. Over 60% of youth with major depression do not receive any mental health treatment. And what about our teachers? Thank you. In a RAND research study last year, teachers reported nearly double the rates of job-related stress and nearly triple the rates of depression than other US adults. When asked if they were considering leaving their jobs in January of 2021, 17% of adults said yes, and nearly 1 in 4 teachers. My remote control isn't working, so if you can, there we go, thank you, said that they were considering leaving their jobs. And 1/2 of Black teachers considered leaving their jobs, which is especially important for students of color, but all students benefit from having teachers of color. So what if we could develop learning environments that benefit every student, teacher, and community member who walks into them, that support mental health and counseling programs, contribute to curriculum, contribute and support restorative justice, and boost attendance and enrollment? We can design learning environments that boost the immune system, improve academic outcomes, help heal trauma, reduce stress and anxiety, increase a sense of safety, and improve environmental health and climate resilience. We can design schools that heal. I've found 3 main principles, if we go to the next slide, that support students' mental health. Create environments that nurture a sense of belonging, provide nature-full places, and inspire awe, curiosity, or wonder. And I'm going to show you some specific strategies for each of these. Nurture a sense of belonging. First, we need to include students and teachers in the design process. Despite the fact that students have the most at stake from their school design, they're rarely engaged in designing schools. The simple act of asking them what they experience and need at school gives us important insight into how schools are used and perceived. And it also helps students and teachers feel valued and heard to be engaged, both of which are vital in nurturing a sense of community and belonging. Next, we need to create a welcoming entry and edges to our school grounds. This helps students and their families feel connected to the campus even before they start attending school. Which of these entrances feels more inviting? Front entries that face the street without fences and gates convey a sense of welcome and certainty to visitors, students, and to the greater community. We can also honor students' lived experiences and histories. This could mean showcasing art or growing and serving foods that reflect students' cultures or traditions. The joint use community garden shown here at Fremont High School invites community members in to work with students, grow and harvest vegetables and fruits, and hosts free community events like farmers markets, garden workshops, and community meals. Honoring students' lived experience. I think we're competing on our controls. We can go back one. Also means understanding that not all students learn best by reading or lectures. There we go. This physics garden at Pomona College allows students to feel and experience the physical forces they're learning about. This lets children with learning differences feel successful as students and lets teachers see students in a variety of learning landscapes. Learning outside can change how teachers see students and how students see themselves. In her 2019 landscape architecture master's thesis, Lisa Strong asked 19 teachers to participate in an outdoor learning intervention. The outdoor learning intervention involved teaching a 30-minute session outdoors twice a week for 12 weeks. And she found that after the intervention, teachers' opinions of struggling students changed dramatically. They went from 100% of teachers saying that struggling students gave up too quickly when faced with setbacks to 75% of teachers saying that struggling students bounced back when faced with setbacks. Next, we need to think deeply about accessibility. Our codes and policies hyper-focus on mobility and smooth surfaces without addressing the different needs of students who have developmental, sensory integration, or physical disabilities that would benefit from a variety of natural surfaces, textures, and social and creative play opportunities and challenges. Occupational therapists and special education teachers emphasize the importance of getting students into natural settings. And there's also a problem with play structures like the one on the left, made from petroleum products like plastic and recycled rubber surfacing. These materials get dangerously hot in the sun, fail to provide creative play and exploration, and are toxic to the environment and children, and far more expensive than nature-based play areas like the one shown on the right. We need to create cozy places and quiet spaces. Again and again, students and teachers ask for places where they can go to de-stress. Yet most schools don't have these quiet places out of the way. These kinds of areas allow students and teachers to restore their sense of calm and well-being so they can come back to the classroom ready to learn and teach. We need to provide enough seating. Too many schools have a shortage of seating in lunch areas or gathering areas. This is a Los Angeles high school at lunch, and most students answered that they don't have time to eat lunch or don't have a place to sit down. This kind of scarcity creates competition and hierarchy and stress and anxiety. We need to provide places where students can rest and recuperate. Research shows that rocking, swinging, even walking brings us back into our bodies and restores a sense of calm. Hammock groves are popping up in parks and college campuses across the country. Why not schools? Because people of all ages, from the smallest child to the grandmothers you see here, find comfort in swinging and rocking. The second principle is to provide natureful environments. We can design with nature to provide passive systems that include bringing in fresh air and natural views to the classrooms, but also allow our landscapes and campus landscapes to work with natural systems and ecosystem services to build soil health, provide habitat, invite wildlife into the gardens for children and teachers to interact with. By providing nature-based landscapes, we can also reduce the noise and air pollution and energy use from landscape machinery and dramatically save time for landscape maintenance teams, but it requires education. We can also support students' feelings of safety by bringing in natural landscapes to schools and through design. 10 years ago, Rodney Matsuoka's University of Michigan doctoral study correlated environmental attributes in 100 Michigan high schools with student behavior and educational success. He found that larger classroom windows and higher human activity levels on the street in front of schools associated with less student crime, while an open campus policy allowing students to leave freely for lunch and natural features next to school buildings associated with more students planning to go to four-year college. Wide open views, even if they were of living grass, related to more student crime and fewer students planning to go to college. Instead of designing campuses to be surveilled like this one, and I see the question in the chat, the research actually shows that breaking up large areas with green and gardens and trees reduces disorderly conduct in students. We can place trees strategically to break up those areas and provide plenty of restorative areas, but also shade where students congregate and eat, and views from classroom and cafeteria windows, which research shows boosts test scores and reduces student stress. Of course, this is only effective if we work with teachers and administrators to uncover windows and forget the myth that so many of us have that all eyes and attention in the classroom must be on the teacher. Students actually need and deserve views of trees and gardens in order to restore attention and reduce stress so that they can learn. We can provide natural experiences for experiential learning. This elementary school simply planted 2 rows of trees to let students see what it felt like to take a walk through the woods. The rest of the school grounds, while appearing generous for some of us, is actually marsh and unusable most of the year. Schools tend to be often located in historic floodplains, marshes, stream beds, fault lines, and other less than desirable land, at least for active use, probably because it was affordable. The Campbell Elementary School Wetland Lab, designed by Early Space, took advantage of the soggy grounds to recreate a wetland habitat for children to explore and learn from, and it's become a favorite place for children compared to the flooded asphalt and mud that was there before. Children need places where they can test their balance, their strength, and agility. The International School Grounds Alliance released a Risk in Play and Learning Declaration in 2017, asking us to design school grounds to be as safe as possible, as safe as necessary, instead of as safe as possible. Nature play gives students the chance to explore gradually, listening to their senses and allowing them to learn how far they can go, which builds confidence and strength and balance that will help them stay safe and healthy throughout their lives. And then unique school design like this one can also create a strong attachment to place. This was designed, students carved this climbing wall themselves with the help of a local stone carver. And the last principle is to inspire awe. Researchers for a project called Project Awe found that awe-inspiring experiences like sunsets, artworks, music, and grand nature improve our mental health and bring us together. And 3/4 of what people answered in a survey, bring them awe, were natural phenomenon. But it could also be public art that speaks different narratives to each individual, or the small everyday experiences like discovering snails or roly-polies or watching birds. Students whose curiosity is sparked, who are inspired, awed, or simply comfortable are more likely to show up and be ready to learn. These 3 principles, nurture a sense of belonging, provide nature-filled places, and inspire awe, can help us design school environments that nourish and nurture our students and teachers, give them places for respite and places to be whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It's really wonderful. Next, I'd like to introduce Nancy Zook and Andrew Hockenberry from CCA Academy in Chicago. Nancy directs the Sustainability, Art, Urban Agriculture, and Community Engagement Programming at CCA, where she is assisted by Andrew. CCA is an alternative high school in Chicago's North Lawndale community. At CCA, they work with students who are not well supported in traditional high schools by providing rich educational experiences and a community that deeply cares for students' well-being. As you'll see in their presentation, outdoor and agricultural education play a huge role in their success, and I will paste a full bio for Nancy and Andrew into the chat as well. And I'm so thrilled to have you today too. I have a personal connection to CCA. My mom was actually a teacher there like 3 decades ago. So welcome, Andrew and Nancy. Please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sam. Yeah, it's pretty exciting to be here today and share with you all and listen to these presentations. Um, I've been at CCA for about 14 years, and Andrew's been here for the last 2. Um, and we owe everything that we've been doing to, if I can make my screen move, I can't, there it goes, to, to this woman, Dr. Myra Sampson, who is the founder of our school and still going strong after 46 years. Um, and it is, I think, her curiosity and drive and interest in education and in doing the best for our students that has allowed us to explore a variety of ways of connecting with our students and engaging with our students. And we're going to share some of those with you today. In particular, hoping it's going to, there it is. We have multiple gardens at our school. We have a bioswale, we have pollinator gardens, we have bees and chickens and all kinds of ways for our students to interact with the natural world. Perma Park is one of those. It's our largest endeavor, and it's a little less than a half an acre, right in the middle of Chicago, in the middle of North Lawndale. And it's based on permaculture principles. It is a food forest. So there's about 50 different fruit trees and bushes, along with the existing trees that were there on that property. And permaculture, sorry, I'm getting a message. Permaculture is about the philosophy of people care, earth care, and fair share. And so using these principles, is it gonna move? Um, students are able to learn that the way that nature grows and is successful together is a way that we can grow and be successful together. So permaculture plantings are in guilds where there are different communities of plants that work together to make sure that each of them is successful and can survive and thrive. So we do that in Perma Park. Our students named that Perma Park. Thank you for moving forward. I don't know why this isn't working for me, but you can see here the community and students were involved from the beginning in the design process in creating this space. And maybe I can do it better here. You'll see here the connection to art and working in class and outdoors, where students are creating all the signage, all of the seating, all of the pathways, working with architects, working with artists so that the finished product that they see, they have ownership of. It's designed by them, it's made for them, by them, to share with their community. And here again, you can see from the conception at the beginning, students coming up with design ideas and then the finished product in the park. And these art products that are in our gardens are, I think what Claire was speaking of, the awe factor, right? That makes these gardens very special place for our students and for our community. And again, learning about permaculture, drawing, design, incorporating art, making models. We work with community organizations in our community schools. So students work alongside college students to learn about the design process and then to go out into the space and actually build in the process of playing as well. Play is a very important part of this. And here you see the building and creating that we do. In this case, students were building furniture for our chicken coop. So they were very excited. We just recently got our new chickens for this year. Our outdoor spaces have learning circles. So you can, the community is welcome to come as well as all of our classes to go out. We practice restorative justice. So we have circles where students can come and share and explore their feelings and experiences. And our staff is included in this as well. This is an annual bulb planting that we do every fall in Perma Park. so that in the spring, everyone can see these beautiful results. Permapark sits on a very busy street, so everyone in the community has a chance to enjoy all of this color coming up every spring. And I'm sharing with you here salad garden created by Andrew and students last summer. I love this idea of growing all our different greens together to make big, beautiful salads. So I wanted to share that in here as well. We talk about native plants and biodiversity and the importance of diversity in our ecosystems. So wherever we can, we have studied and researched, students studying and researching and also learning from community experts about what are native plants, native insects, native wildlife, why they need to be here, and what we need to plant to encourage them to stay. And here you see from last summer, actually, this is our hugelkultur growing beds in Permapark, students working last summer. We have an internship program where students get paid to work in the gardens through the summer. And at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. As Nancy just mentioned, over the summer months, we have those student interns, and some of them are recent graduates, and they come back and participate in continuing their outdoor education with hands-on experiences in soil science, irrigation, integrated pest management, and harvesting, like you see here. Our permapark does not have a fence around it, so it creates a space open to the community, offering a break from the city, the loud noises, the heat that's all around us in Chicago in the summertime. And part of our community outreach is participating in farmers markets. We partner with other community growers, community gardens, to provide a large variety of produce. On the next slide, we have photos of our students harvesting. We can go to the next one.
I don't know why mine.
Yeah.
There we go.
We had sweet potatoes growing in our hugelkultur mounds. We had garlic in our beds behind our school, and there's some onions as well in our hugelkultur mounds. And those are just a few of the many different varieties of produce we grow.
I don't know what. Okay.
And we also have the garden beds behind our school where students can easily access them during the class. They go out there and participate in the companion planting projects. They conduct soil research and learn what different crops need and how we can rotate them over time to keep a healthy balance of nutrients in our soil. Students also continue to develop and design different aspects of Permapark. They problem solve with local architects and architecture students in developing more of our outdoor areas. And growing produce and supporting biodiversity are huge aspects of our garden, but we also are interested in learning about natural building techniques. So here some students are participating in a cob building workshop, which Nancy can fill you in.
So our cob building is one of those projects that we can use some of those federal dollars for. We have a lot of different projects I'll quickly share, but this one, they did these small workshops in the fall, but we also have a larger project building a outdoor pizza oven that we have in play right now. So that, again, making sure you have that student input, making sure that it's something that students want to do, that they like to do. Everyone loves pizza, right? We're outdoors, we're growing the food that we're going to end up putting in those pizzas, and we get to work with our hands, dig in the mud. It's a perfect project. We have experts to help us do it. and it's going to come together this summer. So we'll see how that progresses.
Yeah. And we also want our gardens and our outdoor spaces to spark joy and to be a source for spreading that joy. So here's some photos of some flowers and our registrar, who's also a CCA graduate, with a birthday bouquet of flowers that we picked for her last summer.
I know we're about out of time. I'm just going to share. We do beekeeping at CCA, so that's another project that's funded in part from federal dollars and ESSER funding. We raise chickens. We started that project last year, which is really great. And indoors, we have aquaponics. So that's a system, a closed loop system where we grow fish and plants together. And here you can see our fish tank and our gardens. And here is Andrew with a lovely lettuce harvest. And then you see Dr. Sampson once again at the end. Thanks to Andrew, we're able to have regular, consistent harvests, and the students harvest and clean and then bag it up so that we can share it with our staff and students and community. And that is it.
Great. Thank you so much to both Nancy and to Andrew. Really appreciate this wonderful presentation. I would now like to introduce our next panelist, who is Victoria Ryberg. She is an environmental education and service learning consultant for the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. Victoria works with educators and organizations statewide to increase capacity for meaningful place-based education. And she's also the co-founder of Field Adventures, a nonprofit dedicated to learning outdoors. Victoria has served on state and national boards to advance environmental education and has been recognized by the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Green Building Council Center for Green Schools, among others. We will be adding her full bio into the chat as well. So you can check out the chat to learn more. Take it away, Victoria.
Great, thank you so much. So in Wisconsin, we have some state structures that support our work. Could you go back just a slide, Laura? I don't know what happened there. But to support our work, to support outdoor learning. And I want to just kind of share that because it does really help advance outdoor learning for Wisconsin. So first, my position within the State Department of Education, we are one of very few states that actually have somebody within the State Department of Ed who supports environmental education. And this has been really important to help make sure that outdoor learning is connected to other agency initiatives. For example, when we wrote our reopening plan after the COVID school shutdown, we made sure to have place-based learning, outdoor learning, community-based learning in that language to support schools to take learning outdoors. In addition, we created a companion outdoor toolkit to help schools take learning outdoors. So they were able to see those resources come from the State Department of Ed. And I also support our U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools program. So this idea of outdoor learning, environmental literacy is continually coming from our agency. So that's one structure that's really important to support outdoor learning. Another one is that we have environmental education standards. So in 2018, we adopted new standards from our revised 1991s, I think, environmental literacy and sustainability standards. And those standards really provide teachers with structures to be able to take learning outdoors and to be able to justify it. And actually in those standards, we were able to have language that says learning must occur outdoors. So it gives that permission to move outside of your classroom to take learning outside. The third piece is we have a requirement for environmental education in our K-12 schools curriculum plans. So every school in the state must have environmental education integrated within their K-12 curriculum scope and sequence. And then finally, we have a teacher education requirement where pre-service teachers who are seeking certain license areas must have environmental education preparation. So we work with our educator preparation programs to ensure that teachers are prepared to take learning outside and prepared to support environmental education. So those structures really help advance some of our work. and help us access dollars. So there are kind of some braided, we look at some braided funding to support outdoor learning in Wisconsin. So one of the things that I work on at the department is trying to access our federal dollars to support outdoor learning. Being within the agency, I'm able to be there and be an advocate to try to secure those dollars. We access Title IV-A dollars that allow for STEM education, of which environmental education is a huge part. For strengthening environmental literacy, for supporting active, healthy lifestyles, all of those activities are allowable under those dollars. And so really just being there to advocate for that is an important piece. We're starting to look at ESSER funding and how do we support schools to use that money, like we just heard from Chicago, and what we will hear from in a minute with our school example, to think about, I encourage schools to think about how outdoor infrastructure may encourage social distancing, how modifying the curriculum and teacher professional development to support outdoor learning can address COVID-19 learning impacts, to encourage them to consider how outdoor learning might be integrated into evidence-based practices, such as summer learning and out of school time, so that they can access those dollars. So thinking about that at the federal level, at the state level, working on supporting schools to use their general state aid, other state programs that we have from our legislature, I work to bring multiple state agencies together to support funding for schools. And then we bring together our private foundations and our local funding. And we just really push these out to schools to support outdoor learning, so that when schools contact and say, hey, how can we fund this? We have something where we can give it to them and say, this is where you can go. Here are your resources. So those are some really important parts to support outdoor learning. But rather than having me talk about it from the state level, I really want to have you hear about an example on the ground in Wisconsin. So we heard an urban example in Chicago. We are going to travel to north central Wisconsin in a very rural district. And we're going to hear from Ashley Hegewald and Vicki Haas from the Wittenberg-Burnham Wood School District, and to hear about how they're accessing ESSER dollars and to take learning outdoors. So I'm going to turn it over to Ashley and Vicki.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley. Thanks, Victoria. I am an outdoor educator for the Wittenberg-Burnham Wood School District, as well as a field coach for the nonprofit Field Adventures. I'm lucky enough for the past couple years to be able to take the kindergarten through 5th grade classes outdoors every single month. It's about 550 students total, and they get to spend an entire day learning with me outdoors. Most of these Explorer days are done at our 80-acre school forest. And before my position was hired, the school forest was rarely, if ever, used. And now it's used at least 12 or more days a month. When we're not out at the school forest, we are able to access some green spaces in our brand new outdoor classroom spaces, surrounded by vegetable gardens and a pollinator garden, or just places within walking distance from our school. We've really realized that there's a lot of really fun places just down the block, for example. We are a very small community, 2 communities that work together for their school district. And even though our students seem to be surrounded by nature, they're not necessarily connected to that space, at least in a meaningful way. So my role as a field coach is to collaborate with the classroom teachers, trying to work with what they're already teaching in the classroom, and brainstorm and come up with some lessons and creative planning to bring together environmental education with math, science, social studies, ELA, whatever it is. And then we take it together, the teacher and myself, out into the field to co-teach these lessons or to have different stations with different topics. In addition, I support and encourage teachers to take their classes outdoors as much as possible, preferably weekly, into the green spaces right outside their school doors. Over the past couple years, I've really gotten to know these teachers, and just like any school, there's all extremes. There's, oh gosh, I really prefer to stay in my classroom, to, oh, we could be outside, who needs a classroom? But throughout there's been a lot of growth where teachers are encouraged and embrace the idea of teaching and learning in the outdoors. I've had teachers say, like I think was referred to earlier, you know, a student who might be very reserved or even a little bit challenging inside the classroom, when they get outside on the trail or at the school forest, they just really come out of their shells. And this, you can tell they're just like meant to be here, meant to learn in this environment. I've had a teacher say that to his class, like, look around, guys, you cannot get a better classroom than this. And we're in the middle of a cedar swamp. So it's pretty neat to see the teachers get outside of their comfort zone in the forest instead of in their classroom. But most important, you know, it's the students and the students' excitement for our Explorer Days. I have really witnessed student curiosity and wonder really explode, just giving them the freedom to think and be in these natural spaces. They've become the observers where I could walk right by something and they're always like, Miss Ashley, you got to check this out. And we're looking at like jelly slime molds and mushrooms and all these really interesting things along the trail. They're the scientists. They're collecting data, applying different concepts, analyzing month-to-month topics. And maybe most importantly, they're becoming the stewards of the land. Our first couple visits to the school forest, they felt like maybe even out of their comfort zone, not sure what they should do, not sure where they should be or where they belong. And now after they visited the school forest at least, you know, maybe 15 times over the past 2 years, they really feel like they belong. They're putting down their roots. They're beginning to be the stewards of the land, and they will be able to make a difference. And they're starting to make choices that are really, I'm proud of them for sticking up for the forest, so to speak. So, you know, Victoria asked me to give an example of what we're doing in a rural Wisconsin community. And I think that, you know, the students look forward to it. And I'm really excited to have this opportunity to be the outdoor educator. I had a student one time, every day after school, he would see me and it was a countdown. There is 15 days till our next Explorer Day. Now the next day is 14 days, 13 days, 12 days. So they're really passionate about being outside. And you can't get a better place to learn. So I'll pass it to Vicki Haas, who's one of the elementary school principals, and she can tell us a little bit more about her perspective from admin.
Okay. Thank you. So our district did make a decision to put focus on outdoor education. I think it was really fortuitous to us. We had wonderful resources available to us, green space. We had this beautiful school forest that, as Ashley had mentioned, was not being used or utilized very much. So through use of ESSER dollars and having Ashley formally become our outdoor educator, it was just such a wonderful boost to our classrooms. One of the things that I thought I would talk about too is being a principal. Of course, I'm very concerned with test scores. I'm a reading specialist and a curriculum director. So my background is very working towards those goals and achievement, student achievement. But through my 10 years as principal, I also have had the opportunity to see that kids are not one-faceted. They're not just children that we put in a desk in a classroom, and that's our responsibility, is to fill them up. Through our experience with outdoor education, I'm seeing exactly what Ashley's talking about. Some of those little rascals in the classroom are now leaders and explorers, and they are nurturing the experiences and the nature that they are finding in our school forest or in our outdoor classrooms. We've had classroom teachers taking snack break daily, weather permitting, of course, when you live in Wisconsin, but in our gardens where there's picnic tables available and greenery, and even with the changes with things turning brown in the fall. It's all part of that growing system, and it's really quite interesting to see. So for us, I think having the access of the ESSER funding and being able to have Ashley lead this educational experience has been just such a wonderful opportunity. We had teachers that appreciated the school forest, tried to make attempts to use it, but it was very hit or miss. And now what I see is a continuum in the curriculum, which of course I told you is a passion of mine. And I see that a full day of learning can happen in this outside learning space. Those kids are coming back with such rich experiences, and our days are truly, that curriculum is so integrated between reading, math, science. There is no beginning of one subject and dropping it and moving into another. It's just a very natural resource. So that has been wonderful. I see connections between our teachers, our students, and the nature around them. It is just really exciting. We've only been heavily involved in the program for a short time, a couple of years, but I can't wait until this summer, for example, to see how the pollinator fields are coming and how our school prairie is developing, and the kids that are just waiting to get out there and sit on the benches instead of a seat. And it's just a very exciting experience for all of us. So I've been very appreciative, and I speak for our teachers in our 2 elementary schools that Ashley works with. That's 12 different classes that are getting out to the school forest every single month, no matter what the weather is, and truly experiencing the beautiful forest and beautiful facilities that we have. So it's really making the most of what we had available to us.
Vicki, thank you so much for sharing that story. Ashley, thank you so much for being here. There's a lot of kudos to you in the chats and questions, so please check that out. And I'm going to pass it back to Laura.
Great, thanks so much, Victoria and Ashley and Vicki. Really interesting to hear what you had to share and to hear all about what's going on in your district. So I want to recognize that we are 3 minutes to the hour. We did want to leave a couple of minutes for Q&A. If you are able to stay, please do so. I know some folks may need to jump. Again, this webinar is being recorded, so you will be able to listen to answers to the questions later on. We are also planning on following up with answers to some of these questions in a blog post on our website after today. So if not all of your questions are answered, we will try to do so in the blog. But I wanted to ask our panelists a couple questions before we close today. So we had some questions regarding funding and where some of the mandates for utilizing outdoor education and outdoor learning and using funding towards those objectives, if those come from bottom up or top down, or is that, where is that coming from? Is it the district level or the principal level? So Victoria, I wonder if you might be able to answer some of that from the state perspective in terms of like where the directive comes from and how the decision is made to utilize funds on outdoor learning. And tying into that, Nancy and Andrew at CCA, wondering in terms of if you could speak to some of the funding mechanisms that have allowed you to develop your outdoor learning work and how that works at the school level. So it's kind of a 2-part question.
Sure. I'll start with the Wisconsin perspective. In Wisconsin, we have local control in our districts. And so we have 421 school districts all making their own decisions on what their curriculum is going to be and how they're going to spend those dollars. So I provide a lot of guidance from our agency. I provide suggestions for how they can use dollars to take out learning outdoors. But like you heard Vicki say, she really, as a district, they said, we are going to invest in our local community. We are going to invest in outdoor learning. That is important to us. And so that decision-making comes at the local level in Wisconsin. We are able to use some state dollars to design some projects to engage teachers in outdoor learning, but really for that day-to-day spending, that's a local decision.
And I would say for CCA, we're a small charter school. We're part of a charter network. And, you know, I go back to Dr. Sampson. She is the one who is encouraging and excited about and interested in doing these types of projects. And so that funding that comes through our school, those federal dollars, the ESSER, the 21st century, there's also grants, there's also local resources, there's also donations. And it really takes a combination of all of those dollars to get programs fully funded. And gardens aren't ever complete, right? They're always changing and growing. So there's always something else you can add or change. But, you know, we start with something very basic and it's funded, and then we grow from there based on the interests of our students and our staff and what we feel is, yeah, good for us as a school, but also for our students and their community.
Great, thank you both. There's a question for Vicki and Ashley, wondering about how the secondary school teachers might also use the school forest that you have, and how you might encourage different topic areas like math or ELA to use the space.
So
Yeah,
we do
sure.
have, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ashley.
I was just going to say that the middle and high school teachers definitely utilize the space. The difference is that they don't have like an outdoor educator. I'm just elementary. So it's kind of up to them to come up with the activities and get their students out there. There is a forestry class at the high school that utilizes that space for their whole class, but not on a daily basis. And as far as math and ELA goes, I think those are two of the easiest subject areas to integrate into our outdoor lesson plans. Scientific writing, we do a lot of nature journaling at the school forest or any of our Explorer days. And, you know, math, we're always collecting some sort of data in science or in outdoor exploration. And we can really easily take that data and bring it into whatever topic in math they're doing. So I won't say that the whole day is math, but there's definitely, when we design our lessons, we bring in the math component, we bring in the ELA component. You know, science and environmental ed is very easy when you're outdoors. And then throughout the year, we do have a lot of the social studies lessons, especially with Wisconsin history in our 4th grade curriculum. But Vicki, if you have anything else to add.
No, the only thing that I was going to add is this is a conversation Ashley and I were just having yesterday, in fact, and just really encouraging our middle school to think within the bound, you know, outside of the boundaries and outside of those 4 walls of the classroom. Our buildings are pre-K 8 buildings, so it seems like a natural progression that we get our middle school involved next. And as Ashley said, there are some good uses of the school forest from the high school level. So it's really getting our middle school and crossing those curricular areas. That's our next challenge.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I'm in the interest of time, I'm going to wrap us up for today, but really appreciate all of the panelists and the Department of Education for sharing your time and your resources. And we are going to be following up with more resources after today. We will be posting a blog tomorrow with this recording of this webinar, which we will also be emailing out to everyone. And I think there were some resources that folks asked for in the chat, so we will make sure to include those as well. I wanted to share what we have coming up next in this series. Again, as a reminder, this is a 4-part webinar series. So we have 3 more webinars coming up over the coming weeks. We encourage you to check those out. And you can go to our website, biggreen.org /outdoor learning series to learn more. Please feel welcome to share the recording of today's webinar with your colleagues if they weren't able to join us in person. And we encourage you to be a leader in the Million Gardens movement and invest in outdoor learning infrastructure in your school, district, or state. Please join us in a couple weeks for Teaching and Learning Outside, hosted by Outteach on April 27th. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful afternoon or evening. Take care.